Hey, indie filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and every 8 weeks we take a week off. This is our week off.
Last week's episode on swear words and censorship was episode number 32.
But real quick, Nick, I wanted to talk about this week. Just this morning, I asked you if you could send my GH4 back to me.
Yeah.
I actually don't need you to do that.
Okay.
I guess
so I can keep it.
Yeah, you keep
it's
using
my GH4.
You got your G85, you got a GH4. Does that mean you have two cameras, like two Panasonic cameras?
If I count your GH4, yes.
Yeah.
If you take it back, I'm back to a one camera man.
I actually don't need it. I was going to take it back because my idea was that I wanted to convert it into infrared.
Okay.
And have an infrared camera.
Because who doesn't want an infrared camera? Yeah,
I do. I want one. So, but then at the last minute, I realized I actually want to do this to my GH4, not my GH3.
One of your many GH4s, probably.
Yeah, I have two GH4s, so I figured I could spare one. And the reason I guess my thought process was I should take my oldest camera and convert it, because you kind of, when you turn your camera into an infrared camera, you ruin it.
It's done.
I mean, it can only do infrared. But I realized the whole reason I would want it is to, I mean, I'd want to shoot video with it, not just photos.
You want that sweet 4K.
So yeah, I think the 4K would be really nice to be able to shoot infrared with.
All right, let me ask you a quick question. If we have time on this bonus episode
we
for
do.
A quick question. All right, Good. So cameras in general will shoot infrared by default, like a sensor will, right? And there's an infrared filter that gets removed. Is that what happens? Or am I totally wrong?
Yeah, a camera can handle lots of different light wavelengths, and I think naturally your camera does collect some infrared light, but they put a filter on it to block out most of it. I think it blocks out about 95% of it. So. Okay. You can shoot infrared without changing your camera. One thing you can do is you can go out and get a filter that only lets in infrared light. But you can imagine what happens if you put a filter on your camera and it's already blocking 95%.
You get 5% of the light.
Yeah, you're only getting that 5%. That filter's blocking out visible light at that point, so at least all you're getting is infrared light, but you really need to get a longer exposure to get a usable image out of it.
Sure.
Which is great for photos and not possible for video.
Well, it's possible. Just at a very slow frame rate.
Very slow frame rate.
You know what we call that? We call that time-lapse.
Yeah, time-lapse.
Well, that'll be interesting. I look forward to seeing what the heck you come up with an infrared camera. I cannot, off the top of my head, think of a use for that. What would you use it for?
Well, infrared light performs differently than visible light in some interesting ways. A lot of times you see people using this as black and white photography because the resulting image is mostly black and white. In fact, the only image I've taken so far in infrared was a selfie I shot of myself. That's redundant to say.
I was going to say, do you take many selfies without yourself in them? Just curious.
A selfie of myself. It's mostly black and white. My beard looks a little purple in it.
You have not dyed your beard purple,
No.
for the record. No, okay.
But this was, I borrowed my friend Tom's infrared. He had a converted infrared camera just to test it out. But one thing that's interesting in that photo is you notice all my freckles are gone.
Finally.
Because what infrared does is it actually goes a couple millimeters below the surface of your skin and then kind of bounces around and comes back.
You're doing the government airport thing, trying to see through my clothes.
It's the same thing. Backscatter? Yeah, that's the name of that process. But it means that for people's faces, infrared can look kind of dreamy. It can get rid of blemishes.
Interesting. Perfect.
Eyes can become kind of black. If you're not careful to throw a lot of light into someone's eyes, they can kind of become this void of light.
It's creepy. Good.
Trees usually turn white because leaves reflect a lot of infrared light.
Interesting.
Because you know what happened if trees absorb too much infrared light, they'd get really hot during the day when they're collecting.
And then they'd catch on fire.
I don't know, they'd dry up or something. So they get rid of all that infrared light, they send it back. Skies can turn pretty dark just because infrared light escapes the atmosphere better than visible light.
It's not reflecting back. Yeah, the sky's blue because that's what's scattering the most, right?
Right, in the visible spectrum. And in the infrared spectrum, it doesn't reflect very much. So for shooting landscapes with a lot of contrast between the sky and the clouds, infrared is really cool.
And do you still get any color? I mean, I guess you do.
Well, there's a few different options. So I actually sent my camera off this morning to Kolari Vision, one of two popular companies that people use. People use Kolari Vision and they use LifePixel to do these conversions. And one's in LifePixel's in Texas, Kolari Vision's in New Jersey, so I figured I'd go with the closer one. But they give you several options, because what they'll do is they take the camera, they pull off the sensor that blocks infrared, and they add a new sensor that blocks visible light.
Visible, yep.
But you have several options. You could actually open up the camera to everything, to ultraviolet, infrared, visible light, and then you could put filters on it to choose what you want.
Ultraviolet too. The sensors are sensitive enough to pick up ultraviolet?
I guess, yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know much about that kind of photography. I've been reading a lot about infrared in the last few days. But I opted for the 720 nanometer conversion, which is kind of right down the middle for...
That's my favorite nanometer. I think that's a good choice.
It's kind of the standard average infrared choice, but you can kind of err on the side of visible light and get a few more colors in, or you can err on the side of infrared, go even deeper, and really only get these very rich, contrasty black and white images. So I've kind of split the difference. So I may get a little bit of color, which you can kind of choose how to deal with that in post.
That's going to be interesting. Is it an expensive conversion?
It cost me $275.
Okay, so not outrageous.
Right, not crazy, and a fun thing to do with an old camera that you can spare.
Well, I do have an old GH3 lying around. I could do all kinds of things with it.
Well, if I like it enough, maybe I'll turn my GH3 into my infrared photography camera.
There you go.
In fact, this will actually come in useful. Well, I'm hoping I'll have it by the time I see you. We're going to be in Utah together.
Yeah, next Wednesday we'll be back with a full episode from the DOCUTAH Film Festival in St. George, Utah. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. We're going because Hand Cut is playing at DOCUTAH. DOCUTAH actually played Sriracha a few years ago, and I didn't get to go. So this will be my first time there.
Interestingly enough, I was at dinner tonight with some coworkers, and they mentioned their daughter went to school at Dixie University.
At Dixie State University?
That's right.
That's where we'll be. In fact, if you are around September 8th and 9th in Utah, that's actually when Hand Cut plays. Nick and I will both be there, and then we'll record next week's podcast from Utah.
Fancy.
And I'm hoping I have this camera because I think that Utah desertscapes in the summertime, when the infrared is best, when light is really harsh in the summer, midday, this could be the perfect time for me to shoot some stuff.
Yeah, apparently we'll be right by Zion National Park, so that might be something we want to go check out, maybe shoot some photos, time lapses, things like that.
Definitely. Well, cool. We'll see you all back in a week, and it's been good talking to you.
Thanks, Griffin.
Bye. Cool.
And hi. Welcome back.
All right. You ready for this one?
I'm ready for this one. That was a pretty good, quick episode.
Yeah, I think that's good.